Would you blindly follow me when I'm going nowhere? Would you keep your faith in me when I don't have a prayer? You've got this hold on me. Don't wanna be set free, so keep me safe and sound right here with you. You've got this hold on me, and I'm yours to keep. We'll lock ourselves away from everything, 'cause you got this hold on me.
My best friend and I do almost everything together. We run triathlons and 5Ks, practice karate, go to WVU games together, and we love our music. On Sundays we drink coffee, catch up on each other's busy week, and we talk about the future. We take for granted the home we now have lived in for over 11 years. My, how it has changed, as have we. I've known Aaron for 17 years now. He changed my life. Aaron taught me that a relationship was built on respect, and through him, I learned to communicate my thoughts and my feelings with another individual. It wasn't the relationship my parents had, and it wasn't the relationship I had with the person I was engaged to. It was more than that. We've had our ups and downs, our trials and tribulations, but it always comes back to one thing: the love and respect we have for each other. I often think back to that day 17 years ago, the day that changed everything I thought was right in the world, but wasn't really. The day that I looked at him twice, and then down at the small diamond that sat on my left ring finger. The day I made an important life-changing decision. It is currently 2014, and we have a 13-year-old named James and a 12-year-old named Michaela. I work at NASA as an education specialist for student workshops, and Aaron is an instrumentation and electronic technician in a power plant. My time is tied up with my graduate program and traveling for work, and Aaron spends a lot of time fine-tuning our son's dirt bike for competitions. Together, we coach a FIRST Robotics FLL team that both of our kids are a part of. We visited the NASA Johnson Space Center and met a real astronaut. We ran our 4th triathlon together with our son, and we traveled 800 miles on the Hot Rod Power Tour. We dream of the day that life slows down and we get to enjoy each other's company more often. Maybe in one more year. It's 2012, and Aaron and I take the kids to the Keys for the first time. We want to return to the place that we told each other I love you while laying in a campground tent for the first time. And we want to share this adventure with James and Michaela. It is 2010. Aaron loses a brother. We are devastated, and it takes a long time to recover. Aaron also runs his first triathlon in honor of his brother. This amazes me, and I hope to join him next year. I'm not sure, though, because a triathlon seems like a taxing physical activity. I do jog from time to time, but 17 miles? Our kids are in 2nd and 3rd grade, and I've also decided to go back to school and get my teaching certificate. I fell in love with being in the classroom after a year of substitute teaching. The weekend before I started school, I had a pretty bad accident on my bicycle and lacerated my liver. Internal bleeding meant I spent the rest of vacation in ICU. 10 years out of school kind of scared me. Being in pain for the first several weeks in this new experience, it did not help. But I knew with Aaron's support, I could do anything. It is 2007, and our oldest is starting kindergarten and our youngest preschool. We can't believe how time fast is flying at this point. It seems like yesterday we were holding them in our arms for the first time. I began volunteering in Michaela's preschool and start thinking about what I want to do when I grow up. Up to this point, I had stayed home and enjoyed being at home with the kids, raising herbs in a vegetable garden. I become very efficient at making soaps and detergents, knitting blankets, and changing the oil in my car. But what was I going to do? Aaron and I had decided a long time ago that my career would start when the kids started school, but I'm undecided. Maybe a wildlife biologist for the DNR? I began looking at the graduate program at WVU. It is 2003 and we're finally able to buy our first home. The kids have their own rooms, and Aaron becomes an expert at Hop on Pop, a game the kids made up and love to play. I found out I'm really good at freehand art and begin scrapbooking. And I also long for beautiful gardens, maybe herb gardens and vegetable gardens. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure I have a green thumb, but maybe I'll try it. Aaron and I feel like we're finally living the American dream. Our first home. It is 2002, and the three of us are very happy. James has overcome his jaundice and belly issues and lasts all of the time. In mid-January, we found out that our second child was on the way. By October, our family was complete. It was a girl, and she looked just like me. We named her Michaela Elizabeth. I had been waiting for Michaela for a long time. I wasn't scared this time. I was excited. I knew what I was doing. But round 2 of having a jaundice baby with acid reflux hit hard and fast. I knew it was temporary, but it was exhausting with a toddler who was ready to play all the time. It is 2001, and we're ready to begin our new family. We married in March and visited the Keys for the 3rd time, and we had our first baby, a boy. We named him James, after my grandfather, and his middle name is Aaron, named after my husband Aaron. I remember that night like no other. I had just begun to realize the room was cold, and I was slowly pulling the wet rags my mother and mother-in-law had draped across my sweat-soaked body. It was 1:59 a.m. I looked over at the table several feet away and stared in awe at the new life before me, cried out tears of fear. I thought to myself, I can't believe it. This is actually real. Over the next few months, I continued to be afraid of this new little life. In fact, it took me 45 minutes to bathe him the first time. I was so afraid that I would break him. Unfortunately, 9/11 also happened in the first 3 weeks of his life, which didn't make being a new mom any easier. I constantly feared I'd have to find new ways to defend him against a war. In the meantime, Aaron was already talking about a second baby. With nights of belly issues and jaundice, I wasn't sure I was ready for a second baby. I joked with Aaron and said, "Only if you promise me it will be a girl, and she will look like me." He said, "Deal." It is 2000 and this year is moving like a whirlwind. We went to the Keys for the second time and lingered there a little longer. This time we planned for the occasion. We went for a ride on the African Queen and swam out the coral reef to the underwater Jesus. We talked about having kids one day and our life together. We also graduated from WVU with our Bachelors of Science in Animal and Veterinary Science. That summer we leased our first apartment, and that winter set up our first Christmas tree. We had 2 cats, and we were pretty happy. Aaron asked me to marry him on Christmas Eve, and on New Year's Eve, we found out we were pregnant with our first child. We were pretty excited. The news was fast, but it was welcome. It is 1999. We pack up my 1988 Bonneville and headed south during spring break. We didn't know how far we would make it, but we were ready for a break from pre-vet school and the harsh West Virginia winter. We landed at a campground around in Key Largo with about $400 to our name and stayed 3 nights. On the second evening, Aaron told me he loved me for the first time. I knew I was with the person I was meant to be with. I wondered at this point what kind of crazy life lay ahead. In the beginning of 1998, I knew one thing. I was in love with the person that sat across from me every Tuesday and Thursday in the WVUP cafeteria. I made sure I wore my best outfits that day, and I sat attentively on every word he said. But what was even more amazing was the fact that he listened to me. He was interested in what I had to say, as well as my thoughts and beliefs. The more we got to know each other, the more I realized I had a lot in common with him. This was not something I was used to in my current relationship, and I often looked down at that tiny diamond on my left ring finger and wondered if my life would ever change. That summer, Aaron and I started writing each other a lot in secret. He asked me how I felt about him, and I told him that I did like him. By that fall, we were both at WVU, as was my fiancé. I waited till he left for his parents' house, and then I called Aaron and asked him on a date. We had so much fun that night, and by that evening, I found myself in his room. He taught me to 2-step and he heated up a chicken Alfredo dinner for me. I looked at him that night, and I realized I didn't have to put up with the abuse I was experiencing. For whatever reason, I had resigned to the fact that it was normal. I was young, and I was naive. But what would the future hold? Would I spend the rest of my life with him? Or was he just a stepping stone to finding my new, own self-respect? That night, I took that tiny diamond ring off my ring finger. It was September 1997, and I was busy working in the chemistry lab at WVUP when I heard the professor say, "Aaron Ford, there is a grant opportunity for students going into the veterinary field." I turned my head. A grant opportunity for vet students? I need to learn more about this. And then I saw him. Everything changed that day in the blink of an eye. I looked at him twice, and then down at the small diamond that sat on my left ring finger. I looked around the chemistry lab and then advanced to hear more about what the professor had to say. I looked over at the very young Aaron Ford, and I tried to figure out how he was going to fit in the rest of my life.
When there's nothing left to say, will you still be listening? Will you help me stand up straight when I bend and breaking you? You've got this hold on me, don't wanna be set free, so keep me safe and sound right here with you. You've got this hold on me, and I'm yours to keep. We'll lock ourselves away from everything, 'cause you got this hold on me. When my world is turning cold and the clouds come rolling in, stand beside me